10 slides, so that probably will be around 10 minutes of like just covering what Ally, the focus of Ally and what it does, and then I'll jump into demonstration. And after that demonstration, we can then look into our sandbox environment and answer some questions and go around how the kind of things that you can do with your sandbox environment to try out Ally. Is that okay? Perfect. So Ally, Blackboard as a company has always been committed with accessibility. We build our products with accessibility in mind from the ground up, always considering how people will navigate through the software. But and all LMSs, and that's Blackboard Learn and Canvas and Moodle, they all do a great job of trying to make everything accessible. However, the major challenge, as you well know, is that when faculty start uploading content into those courses, that content might not necessarily be accessible, and there's lots of challenges with that. So the challenge is that content in courses bring to basically to the education environment, right? They affect institutions, faculty, and students differently, right? So institutions, the main problem that institutions have, or challenge, is that it is very difficult to understand where the institution is in terms of accessibility. It's a very hard question to answer. If I were to ask both UC, Boulder, and Denver, I mean, where does the institution stand in terms of accessibility and content in courses? I mean, it's a very hard question to answer, right? And that does not only present some legal problems, but also if you want to focus your efforts onto providing remediation for that content, it's difficult to know where to start, right? Or where the problem is, right? So that is a big challenge that that is difficult to address. A lot of the work has to be done manually, right? So that's also very costly. Now, for faculty, we understand faculty know that accessibility is an issue, right? They know that it's important, but most of the time, faculty don't have a clear understanding of how the lack of accessibility affects their students. They also have a difficult time keeping up with all the training that's required to provide remediation to content in their courses. I mean, they have a lot of things to do. So it is also hard to provide guidance at a very kind of in a scalable way to faculty on how to provide these kind of remediation. So again, faculty, that's just another one of the challenges that they have to deal with when they're working with their courses. And students, of course, the most important part of the accessibility issue, right? Students, when they do disclose their accessibility status, they request for content changes or courses being made available for them in other formats, they usually experience delays because of that manual work that's related to it. But we also know that a lot of students don't like to disclose their status when they're moving in from high school into like a higher education situation. They want to keep, they've experienced certain things in their previous, academic life, and they want to avoid that. And so sometimes they don't necessarily disclose their status. So we know that there's a wide number of students out there that we're not necessarily helping with in terms of accessibility. So there's challenges throughout for them. And also accessibility, as you well know, is not necessarily related or completely related to just people who need assistive technologies, but it's also about access to content, ease of use, and determining, how students want to consume the content themselves. So it's about universal design, right? It's not just about accessibility. It's about making content easily accessible for all. So that's where Ally comes in, right? So that's what Ally wants to help with, all of those different challenges, and it does it in different ways, right? So again, because we're very committed with accessibility, Blackboard has made this solution available for obviously Blackboard Learn LMSs and like Canvas and Moodle Rooms and standalone versions of Moodle. The D2L version of Ally is still out there. We're having some issues trying to make that work. So, but it's part of our roadmap. We really want to make this tool available for everyone. And it has well, that image that you see there, that's basically Learn, but it applies to basically to all LMSs. One major part of the philosophy behind Ally is that we don't want to change the way that faculty work with their content. We know that institutions have invested quite a bit, training faculty on how to use the LMS properly and how to create, very engaging online courses and face-to-face courses with, with some technology help. And so we don't want to change that. So the idea behind Ally is that the workflow should remain the same. So just as faculty work with content today, they should keep working in the same way when Ally comes into into play. And that is, I think, one major thing that really helps with the adoption of Ally, right? So when Ally is enabled in an environment, right, one of the things that Ally does, one of the first things is that all the content that's uploaded into a course will be taken through an accessibility checklist. Now, if you're familiar with the WCAG 2.0 standard, it basically is a list of things that you have to consider when creating content. And that is kind of difficult to follow for someone who's not trained on how to provide remediation, right? Because it's basically you have to look into all of those items and getting a sense of where the document is or the content is in terms of accessibility is not really straightforward. So one of the things that Ally does is that it converts all of that kind of complexity. It translates that into one simple way to understand how content is, and basically it's an accessibility score, right? So as a percentage, we can say, this content is 100% accessible, or this 80%, or 20%. So for faculty who, again, are not familiar with accessibility, it's very easy to understand where the content is, right?
Jorge,
yes.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
Is there some sort of minimum threshold that you want to get to be in compliance, or to say that you're meeting an objective for being accessible, or is it just 100%?
Well, that's a great question. The idea is that content should be at 100%, but I know that especially when going through a compliance audit, I believe that it changes depending on the state, but they're not necessarily looking for 100% on the first go. They're looking at a progress, right? Okay. So it's, if you were at 20, then I want to see you move to 40, then 60, then 80. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Aaron.
In terms of when the WCAG standards that we use, there's various levels of those, and so we do score the criteria in terms of the severity of impact on students.
Okay.
There's not an expectation that you meet all WCAG standards for a specific type of content, but we certainly want to meet the majority of them in the level 1 criteria.
Okay.
That have the most impact. So there is a weighting to that criteria.
Correct.
It's not like you have to meet every piece of that. And then the other thing is to reinforce what we've seen in terms of the investigations. With Office of Civil Rights, we'll be looking for, I'm sure folks in this area aware of this, that you're being proactive around your strategy on campus. Do you have a policy? Are you making progress? Mm-hmm. And do you have a plan over multiple years to continue to move forward? Because there's no such thing as 100% accessible, right? And so it's more about that you have a proactive plan, you're taking action on that over the course of many, many years. Right? There's a great saying that accessibility is a journey, not a destination. So
I like that.
You just want to be moving along that path, and that's what they're looking for.
Perfect. So this automated accessibility checklist, it is done through a machine learning algorithm that goes with the content, and that helps us provide that score, but it also helps us create alternative formats for that content. Basically, the way that this algorithm works is that it kind of tries to mimic the way an able-sighted person would go through the content. And that way we can identify features in the content, in the document, so that we can see, structure like headings or diagrams, tables, and through that we actually can automatically generate alternative formats for those documents. So usually, yes.
I'm sorry.
No, good.
What is your definition of accessibility? We had a question on the chat. So when you think about accessibility, how would you define that? Because it's different than an accommodation.
Correct.
So accessibility, we're really thinking about being able to access content in an equitable way with minimal changes necessary, required. So that is my take on accessibility.
Correct.
Anything else that we can build on in terms of that definition?
Yeah, it's funny because I was just looking at Jorge's slide here, and we've actually changed
From-
even our
yeah.
our language around this, that we call these alternative versions now versus alternative accessible versions.
Ah, okay.
Really moving to more of that concept of this is more of an inclusive education environment by providing these alternative versions. And yes, it helps with accessibility, but that is not
Got it.
the primary focus.
Correct.
necessarily.
We're getting to that universal approach, much like you were
Yeah,
designing.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so the way that, as you'll see, when students interact with the content, they had basically an option that said accessible versions, and some students will not identify themselves with that, so they would not use it. So
Right.
when moving to alternative formats, then that kind of makes them feel that they actually have that's useful for them too.
Right.
Like, it's just a preference that I have,
Mhm.
right? It doesn't stigmatize or label me.
Right.
That's correct. Yes. So I guess the easy way to answer that, accessibility for us is universal access to content.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So the alternative formats for the documents that are automatically generated depend on the original document, right? So if it's a PDF, it will create another PDF that will introduce proper tagging, will help with the structure, so it will make it easier to read. Usually, if it's a Word document, it will generate an HTML format. But like basically for all documents that are uploaded, whether they're PowerPoints, Word documents, PDFs, or HTML content that's uploaded into a course, it will always create a semantic HTML version of it. Right. This is great for people who need something like a screen reader to go through content, because the browser is the easiest way for them to interact with content. Right. If they were to download a PDF or a Word document, they would have to open another software that introduces other levels of complexity navigating through that. The browser is easier to use, so that's the main format for people who are really concerned about accessibility or require accessibility. Then, as I said, there's an enhanced version of the original. We kind of call it that because it takes the PDF, for instance, and it will create proper tagging to the PDF. Sometimes PDFs are just printouts of Word documents, and those are not necessarily completely compliant. Also, if a faculty member, and I'll show that in a minute as part of my demo, if a faculty member uploads a scanned document, the software will automatically OCR that document and create a text version of it. So that's quite a
And what is OCR?
transformation.
All right. Can you
Sorry?
define OCR?
OCR is optical character recognition. So it's basically an algorithm that looks at the images and converts those images into text when they are text. And then there are other alternative formats as well. The EPUB, which is the format that electronic ink devices use, like a Kindle or a Nook, right? So you can also use, of course, EPUB on your phone. But the idea there is that students can decide to consume the content in another device, because sometimes those articles can be quite lengthy, and it's easier on the eyes to use those devices.
Accessibility features too. Again,
Yeah, they do have
things up in contrast and stuff.
That's right.
Pretty popular.
Right. That's right. So they can change the background from white to black and whatnot. And then there's an audio version of it that, again, most people who require assistive technology have their own screen reader, right? Or a screen reader has been provided by the university, and they'll use that mainly. But this audio version can help with people who are transitioning or who are losing their vision. Sometimes it's easier for them to adjust to this technology. And also, again, if I wanted to, as a student, listen to it while I exercise, I mean, that's one good option.
So Jorge,
Yes.
for the audio in particular, and I'm also thinking Braille.
Yeah.
How to get to that.
Mhm.
The system will make the changes so that it becomes, there's an audio version
That's
that's
correct.
available.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to spend a lot of time, but I'm very curious about how that works.
Yeah.
Well, basically, the machine learning algorithm takes the content and it uses several processing techniques to create the formats, and it will automatically put it through this text to speech algorithm and converts that into an audio file. So it's an MP3 file. So let's say that you're accessing your Canvas course on your phone, and you're walking down the street. You want to, I walked 15 minutes to get here, so I could have used that time to listen to an article, from my professor. So I could have downloaded that file and listened to it on the way.
And you said this works for PowerPoint as well? So
That's right.
it could be done for slides?
That's right.
Very cool.
Yeah, and just a little more on that. So this Ally is a cloud-based service that connects in with Canvas. And so when it does the original scan of the document, it sends that to the Ally service. In the cloud, we have things like an OCR engine. We actually use it's called ReadSpeak to do the text to audio conversion. That's also a product that you can license separately. So we're using kind of industry standard conversion tools or stuff that we built to do that conversion and then provide that back within the course environment.
That's right. Thanks, Aaron. So that is one great, those two things alone, like the automatic conversion and the ability to provide a score are, I think, great. I mean, they're phenomenal. But as I said before, the challenge with faculty is that sometimes they don't have a sense of how accessibility affects students or the lack of accessibility. So we provide instructors with feedback on basically where the score is, and we help them with two things as well. One is basically looking at, what does this mean? If this document is missing headings or is missing a description, what does that mean for students? And so that helps raise awareness of accessibility. And the other thing is that we help with training as well, because they can basically click on a button, and you'll see this in a moment, and we'll provide faculty with a step-by-step on how to change or provide remediation. So it's a great workflow. You'll see it in a minute. Finally, institutions want to know, basically where they are, and we provide an institutional report, which I probably might not go through, only if you want me to today. But it basically gives a sense of where the institution is, all the courses that are in the system, and the accessibility score for the whole system, and then you can dive into each particular course and get a clear sense of where we are. Okay, so if there are no questions, I can go into demo. Would you guys want me to do that?
That's great.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to close this presentation here, and let me just make sure that I'm still logged in here. Sometimes they can log me out. Okay, so I am logged into a Canvas course. That's what you see on the left side of the screen right there. I'm logged in as an instructor. And this is my landing page. You can actually see Ally in action right there. Let me see. So those are the indicators that basically they're telling me that the content in there is not necessarily accessible. So this, just by looking at the colors, I have a sense of where we are. And if you look close to that, I mean, you see that gas gauge kind of icon also moves. So if I were using high contrast or basically black and white, I could still see it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to edit this content. It's a page inside a Canvas course, and I'm going to add some content to it so that you guys have a sense of how this works, right? So just like any other web page, I can say, please add some text in here. So please review the following documents. Okay. So I am going to upload 3 documents. So I'm going to do that, and after I upload them, I'm going to basically show them to you so you get a sense of what we're going to see. Okay. So I have my documents on the right. Just basically going to click upload that document, and then I am going to upload another file. So that's number 2. And I don't know if you do drag and drop here. I think it's quite neat. I shouldn't be talking about Canvas that way.
You're safe in this room. Yeah, you are, actually.
It's just a safe space, I hope. So I have uploaded now 3 documents, and finally I am going to upload an image. So this is a change that Canvas just recently has done to to the Canvas environment. So when I upload an image now, it requires me to add alternative text. So I'll say yes. Oh, sorry. And just upload. That's not necessarily alternative description, and that's kind of the problem as well. Now, I want to just highlight that while this workflow to upload an image kind of works, if I were to go here and embed an image, and I go in and select an image that I've already uploaded, like the one I had, right? I mean, it will not necessarily bring in the alternative. Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
So you have to do it again.
You have to do it again. So that's just something that just to keep in mind. Okay, so I'm done with that. I'm going to click save. And before I go into the accessibility scores for those files, I just want to show the files that I uploaded. Okay, so first one, this is a simple one-page document. It's a two column format, and the way that I created this headings, right, these titles are just basically like what most people do: select the text, click bold in there, and increase the font size, and that's it, right? And that's the same for all the subheadings in here, and for the table, same thing. Select that row, click bold, and I'm done, right? I think that I'm done at least, and that's what I uploaded. Then I have another one here. This is the second document. This is a chemistry document. It has a cool image there of this hipster dude and a periodic table. Now, notice that how this does not have a description in there, and also neither does this very complex image at the bottom. So again, very typical behavior for faculty again. And this is the third document I uploaded. Now, this is a scanned document. Beautiful. This cannot, I cannot select text in here. And basically a collection of pictures. So completely inaccessible.
Yeah. Just to comment on that, probably the biggest offender.
Yeah.
I see,
Yeah.
Right.
unfortunately.
Exactly.
It's the most inaccessible type of content you can upload, and it's very common.
That's true. So let's look at the scores that Ally has given me here, right? So let's start with the first document. So medium, then I have low, and this one, very low, right? So let's look at how Ally is providing me with here. What is Ally doing? So the first one, it has a medium score, so it's of around 48%. So it basically, it's not too bad, but we're still not, we're not, the standard is not being completely covered here. Okay, so the software is letting me know that the document does not have any headings. So what does it mean, right? I have never used headings before, so what does that mean? So, well, headings aren't always headings, right? So just like I mentioned, just by adding a bold font in there, that doesn't mean that it's necessarily a heading. So if I were using a screen reader, it will basically look at that text as the same as the adjoining text. So it would be difficult for me to understand the context of it. So why is it important to use it? Why should we? Why is it that we need headings? Well, it facilitates searching. It's essential for people who have visual impairments, and it's easier navigation for everyone, right? So again, it's not just about accessibility; it's about making content easily digestible by everyone who's in the course. So, okay, now I understand what headings mean. Is everyone okay? Sounded like someone fell.
Someone needs to mute their mic.
So now I understand what accessibility means. How can I change it? Okay, so I click on how to add headings. The software is asking me which original application I use. Okay, good. It's important to hydrate, especially in Colorado. So I'm going to select Office 2016. And the software gives me a step-by-step on how to provide remediation to that document. Now, what I really love about Ally is that I can follow those steps and provide remediation, but also adding the headings. Sometimes it's not just about clicking and selecting heading 1 or heading 2. It's about the structure of the document, right? So if I click on how to add, good headings, Ally will give me, again, some information about how to properly add a structure, what things to look for. And also, if you go too deep, it might not necessarily help, right? So it's about keeping the structure, sound. So I now know how to provide remediation. So what I like about this is that it provides a workflow for faculty. It's easy to follow, and I can actually see it working, see it in action. So let me go into this one, because this is easy to see how basically this thing works. So I can select the text, and I can convert that into a heading 1, right? So again, it's very easy. Microsoft makes it really easy for people to follow accessibility guidelines. It's just that we sometimes don't know how to do it, right? So I'm going to click heading 2 for this one, and this one's also heading 2, and I'm going to leave it at that. I'm just going to basically click save, and what I will do now is I will re-upload that document. So that's document 1. Just drag and drop in that area. It will automatically replace the original document, and now you can see how that score basically went up. So it's very easy for me to follow that, and I'm happy that I get that well done in there. I like that validation, but you know what? There's still issues. It's only 68%. So what's the next issue? Well, there's tables that have missing headers. So I can basically follow this process, and you get a sense of basically how to provide remediation. Let me go back. So in the you can see the score has immediately changed. I can see that same process happening here with the other document that I uploaded that does not have description. So if I wanted to do that, again, follow the step by step, and the software will let me know again, in an educational context, what kind of descriptive text you want to add in there. It depends on the course, depends on what you really want to highlight. You don't have to describe a painting, right, in that square, but you want to why is it that you highlight that image and how that makes sense within the context of the course, right? So again, really good guidelines there for faculty. Now let's go into the alternative formats. So remember that scan document, it's a 0, right? Basically, it's no wonder. Ally, if you click in here, that little kind of like downward arrow that you find in there, you have access to the preview that Canvas provides for faculty and students. You can of course download that, but you can click on alternative formats. That will bring this little box here, and this way I can actually select which format I want to consume the content in. So in this case, at the very top, I found the OCR PDF. So I'm going to click download, and basically I've downloaded that document into my computer. If I click on that, you'll see that it kind of looks like the original, but it's not quite the original, because this is text that I can actually select. The links have been converted into actual links, so I can actually click on that and follow. The links have this proper semantic HTML tag to them. The tables have been converted into actual tables. So just through that, I mean, we have provided quite a great service for our students, right? I mean, it was completely inaccessible, and now they can actually read it. So that is, I think, one of the great things about Ally, is that it's very proactive. We don't have to go in and click anywhere. The software will automatically take the content and create other formats, and that just provides a great service for our students without the intervention of faculty, right? So faculty can upload their content, and they can see those red marks in there, but of course they have to move on to something else, and they can come back and provide remediation. But just by uploading that into their course, they know that there's other formats that students will be able to access. So let's go back into that one. Well, I've never heard this audio version, so let me try that. So you can see how Ally starts working on content when you upload it, but sometimes it will be put into basically a queue because, you know, if you can imagine all faculty uploading content at the same time, sometimes it takes a while for the content to be processed. But if a student requests the alternative format, then basically that's put up to the, that content is taken up to the very top of the queue, and it will be converted automatically. And so now, let's see.
Begin heading level 1. The Hubble Ultra Deep Field, HUDF. Begin paragraph text.
So you see,
The Hubble Ultra Deep Field is an image of a small region of space in the constellation Fornax.
so you can hear how the audio contains the tagging, right? So that's important because the student can listen to, okay, so this is the title. It's not part of the body of the text. And as you can also hear, the language that's been used, it's actually quite natural. It doesn't sound like a robot. So how do students interact with this? Well, I can basically go home here. Oh, I knew it. I was going to be logged out. So I can go home and I'm going to click on the student view. And as you will know, this basically lets me look at the course from the student perspective. Students don't see those indicators. I mean, it's not for them. It's basically for faculty, but they do have access to the alternative formats, just like I showed before. Okay, so that's what students, that's how students, without having to ask anyone in the institution, they can decide how they want to consume the content. Okay, so it removes certain barriers behind, you know, the problem or the challenges of accessibility. And that's basically what you can do in your sandbox today. So let me leave the student view. So when you log into your Canvas environment, you will sandbox Canvas environment. You'll find basically an empty course. That doesn't mean that you can't use that to work with your own content. So what I'll suggest for you guys is to go into your settings area for the course, and basically in your current environment, so in your current production course that you actually have with your students, you can go into settings and click export course content, and you can export one bit of your course or all the course, you know, and you can basically then come into the sandbox environment and click import, and then select Canvas course export package, and that will basically bring all your content from your course, and you can look at that and see how accessible your course is, right? Now, one thing that I have to mention here is that when you import a course, sometimes those can be 200 megabytes, 300 megabytes. So Ally will take that content and will start processing it. So don't be alarmed if you don't see an indicator right away when you upload that. It will start working on that, and they will start appearing, you know, after several minutes. That is something that we recognize. It's kind of off-putting at first. So we've in our future version of Ally, we're going to add an indicator that basically says we're processing, right? So that you don't get alarmed by that. So if you start seeing in your sandbox environment, in a couple of days, you start seeing black markers. That basically indicates that it's processing. So it's not red or green or yellow. It's going to be black, saying, you know, it's still being checked out. So what do you guys think?
Well, I'm
Sure.
fascinated by this, but I have a question.
Sure.
So I love the indicators, right? So you just immediately know, and I'm actually a little nervous because when I think about my course.
You should be, by the way,
Right.
the majority of people's course content does not score well, and that is
That's
more
right.
commonplace than not. So do not be
Yeah.
alarmed by
So I'm
seeing that.
We're all in the same boat. Don't worry.
hopeful with tools like this being on the market, but when you show the student view, right, the students really have access to do this too. So as an instructor, because like you did the audio and then the OCR PDF, like would you upload both of those or?
No, as an instructor, you basically don't have to worry about that. Ally will create those formats automatically. So you don't need to, so I call this like the holy grail of universal design, because
What?
the Holy Grail. Because really, I mean, universal design has always been about how students should have a choice on how they want to consume content, but that basically faculty had to create different formats,
Right.
which was a lot of work, right? So with this approach, faculty, if I have a PowerPoint, I'll just drop it in there. The student has a choice if they want to listen to it, they want to read it in a Kindle, or they want to use an HTML, reader, basically. So so it's basically universal design for everyone, right? Without having to put all that cost into the faculty
And
side.
those alternative versions, just to be clear, are not stored in Canvas. Those are
That's right.
stored again in the Ally Cloud service. So when content is uploaded,
Yeah.
it automatically scores it, creates those alternative versions for when the student would want to use them,
Okay.
or the faculty member wants to download it and check it out. Yeah. There's no step that you need to take for those alternative versions to show up.
So I haven't explored it yet, but we are starting to integrate Panopto into
Yes.
our Canvas. Does that apply as well to Panopto now that we have video and a PowerPoint?
So Panopto, so with video content, what we're working on is providing a report on whether or not that those videos actually have a subtitles.
Like a closed
Closed
caption.
captions.
Yes,
Yeah,
closed
okay.
captioning. But when the video is stored in a third-party storage or service, then it's hard for us to go in and look into it.
Okay.
And we are working on that, but it requires those systems to have open doors for Ally to go in and scan it. So we have an open door in Canvas, so anything actually in Canvas, we can assess, right? But as soon as you start having external storage, we need to have that
Yeah.
next door open for us. And we're working with those partners of both Kaltura and Panopto. But so those are kind of longer range plans for us.
And the good thing about Kaltura and Panopto is that basically the content there is